crazy, unexpected news alert that nobody saw coming. IGN posted an article saying, can we please stop dunking on Concord? Oh my God. I did not even mean to say it. That's funny. Freudian slip. Can we please, let me take that again. Can we stop dunking on Highguard? I seriously didn't mean to do it. Before it's even out, please. That was freaking funny, dude. I think I saw Concord written here, and so my brain like copied it up there. That's freaking hilarious, dude. I've never had a like actual Freudian slip there. That's freaking hilarious. So this article posted by Simon Cardy. I typically like Simon's work. He does really good stuff with IGN. You probably recognize him. He's the one that kind of talks in the British accent and is very recognizable. You know, I sound nothing like him. My accent is not accurate. I'll give you that. But you'll recognize him. He's done a bunch of stuff. Looks like he did the campaign review. Did he do the voiceover for this?
But it also detrimentally affects the solo experience. From not having AI companions fill in for you if no buddies are online, or kicking you for inactivity if you're idle for too long, to not even being able...
Yeah, that's him. So I like Simon, and he does good work typically, but this is a funny post seeing it come from IGN, because it comes off as just like playing defense for a game that's been AFK and is like just not present at all, you know. Paul Tassi, of all people, he posted on Twitter. He's one of the writers for Forbes, if you don't know. And he actually responded to this headline, and we're going to look at the article in a second, but he actually said because the post was, Highguard isn't out yet. Why are we rushing to dunk on it? And he said, what it showed did not look good, and it has shown nothing else since. So what are we supposed to make of it? Which... Yeah. It's like, I think there's such a funny dynamic with some of these games and with some journalists too, where they assume that people should start being like convinced of it. Earlier in stream, I talked about like the scale and like the balancing of where you are on the scale of convincing me that I should buy your game, like the quality scale. So imagine like it's balanced on the fulcrum right in the middle. If you're totally unconvinced one way or the other, you don't think it's going to be bad, you don't think it's going to be good, you're in the dead center, right? If you think it's going to be good and you're going to pre-order it, get the collector's edition, you're probably over here. You're this like fanboy territory. And if you're over here, you're like full on hater, where you're just like, nothing they could possibly show will ever convince me. This is going to be terrible no matter what. Like, we all know the types. What they did was their trailer dropped and most people landed over here. They thought it looked lackluster and lame, and so they're just not that interested. So they're here based on what they showed. But then you see posts like this from IGN where they're acting like, no. You should be exactly here no matter what until the game comes out, until you play it. It's like, no, they showed me a trailer. I thought it looked lame. And so I'm not convinced. And I'm like, if your point is like, we shouldn't be a hater towards it. Okay, that's one thing. But people saw a trailer, thought the trailer was lame and uninteresting, and so that's what's informing their decision. And that's not their fault for feeling that way. It's the job of the developer and publisher to convince you to buy it, right? Like, that's the point. He says, on December 11th, 2025, Highguard was revealed at the Game Awards, a PvP rage shooter from some of the creators behind Apex Legends and Titanfall. Highguard was admittedly somewhat of a surprise as the last reveal of Jeff Keighley's show, which has typically been reserved for highly anticipated single-player games such as Naughty Dog's next Project Intergalactic or the next Mass Effect. Rather than a big-budget RPG, Highguard's trailer displayed a multiplayer game rooted in a mix of fantasy and sci-fi, with SMG wielding heroes riding horses into battle and magical spurs hurled into the ground, spears hurled into the ground to ground enemies by floating characters. A new breed of shooter flashed across the screen as its Overwatch by way of Concord action played out. The online reaction to this trailer has not been kind. Type Highguard into YouTube and you'll be almost exclusively met with videos headlined something along the lines of, "This game is cooked. It's worse than we thought. What happened?" What's happened is that it hasn't even been released yet. And so I'm here to state what I thought would be the obvious. We should actually play games before we definitively decide if they're good or bad. I feel like definitively is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Here's where I'm at, okay? I don't need to necessarily eat. Let me take it another angle. I don't need to drink from a cup of spoiled milk to tell that it's spoiled, you know? I don't need to drive my car on the highway to know that the tire is really low and might pop if and rip apart if I go on the highway. Like, I don't need to act out the full thing to use deductive reasoning and to take information that I've been informed by to come to a conclusion based on the best evidence that I have, okay? You don't have to actually follow all the way through. This is something that you do literally every freaking day of your life. When you go to a restaurant and you look at a menu and you decide, that all looks terrible. That looks good. I'll order that. You just dismissed all of this stuff without trying it and settled on that based on the information they presented to you. It's the same thing you do when you're driving on the road and you're like, that road, I think there's potholes over there. I'm going to go up a street and go over. I don't want to go in the potholes. You didn't drive on the street, dude. It could have been great for all you know. Stop judging the road. Like, this is just a human being thing. You take information that you get and then you make an informed decision. In the case of Highguard, obviously, I agree what Bust a Nut says, which is that it is free. So this is much more approachable and accessible than a game like Concord was, which was, of course, $40 at launch. You can just download it, presumably through Steam, assuming it launches in 5 days, and you can just play it and give it a shot, right? It's still a task. It's still something players need to be convinced of, to not just spend the time to download it, because I have fiber. Pat myself on the back for that. Did not always have fiber, though. And when I didn't have fiber, I only recently got fiber internet. When I did not have fiber, downloading a game like this, that's going to be like 25 to 50 gigs, that's like a solid hour and a half, 2 hour process that I'm not using any of my other internet that night. If I'm playing games with friends, all of a sudden I got to set that aside. And then I also coordinated with my friends to maybe hop on and try it as well with me, because it's a team-based game. So it's like, it's a process, and you got to be convinced of it, because this is very competitive. And in order for me to play this, I'm not playing something else that I know I like, right? So you still have to be convinced. You still have to be convinced at the end of the day to even bother trying. There's been plenty of other free-to-play games that you probably have never played because you weren't convinced of them. I understand not being into the look of the game, which is funny. I've seen this going around. People described it. They said he has the free-to-play haircut. Which, like, once I saw it, I can't unsee it, damn it. Because, like, yeah, kinda. Like, it is kind of the, yeah. I don't know what it is, but dude, there's just some games where you see them and it's the haircut's the giveaway. It's always the giveaway. It's so funny. It's just so funny. But anyway, you may not like the look of the game, but among the gaming community, it increasingly feels as if there's almost no underlying need for new releases to be bad if they're not exactly, hold on. I added a word. It increasingly feels as if there's now almost an underlying need for new releases to be bad if they're not exactly what we want from one. I can't help but feel this attitude is completely unhelpful in the long run, engineered with social media and rage bait content algorithms in mind, rather than any kind of thoughtful analysis of what's on show. Such willingness to dunk on a game for which we only have a single trailer and 10 screenshots displays a complete misunderstanding of or intentional opposition to a, quote, rising tide lifts all boats mentality when it comes to game development. So a willingness to dunk on a game for which we only have a single trailer and 10 screenshots. This is like the whole point of this. Whose fault is that? You put out a trailer. People thought trailer looked bad. They concluded from that trailer, look bad. Me not like. Me not interested. And then they closed the book because that's all they have to go on. If there were a new trailer, they might look at it and go, ooh, new trailer. Me like new trailer. Me like game. Me convinced game may be good. And then they close the book because now they've been convinced because they got new information. It's not my fault that they only dropped one trailer and that trailer left people in the state that they are. I can't speak for other content creators. When we've spoken about Highguard, it's usually about the broader reception to it. You don't get to choose or demand how people feel about something. As I've said since the beginning, the game may actually end up being pretty solid or pretty good. Coming from former Apex devs, I'm sure they know how to make a good shooter, okay? That's never been the point. The point is, when it comes to convincing players that this is a game worth playing, this failed. And their response has been to go into lockdown and refuse to elaborate. And then people like IGN are like, why are you judging it? You only have one trailer. It's like, yes. And we didn't like the trailer. Like, what do you mean? It's like, if I go to a restaurant, I'm just hungry. That's why I'm using all the food analogies. If I go to a restaurant and I order a soup and the soup shows up and it's cold and I'm pretty sure there's a toenail in it and I send it back and then they come back out and they're like, you lost your appetite, sir. Why won't you order a steak or something? Why won't you order more? Why are you not interested in continuing this relationship and this business relationship with us? And I'm like, you gave me one thing and that one thing sucked and I lost I'm not interested. And like, I'm done. You've given me no other reason to be compelled, right? Like, I'm not going to like give you the benefit of the doubt now. You know, I'm good. It's like, again, and so it's either displays a complete misunderstanding of or intentional opposition to a rising tide lifts all boats mentality when it comes to game development. More successful games are ultimately good for everyone, even if this specific one doesn't meet your personal tastes. I can understand this mentality. More successful games are ultimately good for everyone. So the more successful more games are, the better it is for everybody in the industry. This is, I get what he's saying. It comes off as lecturing though, because you're upset at how people feel and you're telling them they shouldn't feel that way. But the case is just like, hey, stop. It's like they gave us one trailer. People thought the trailer was lame. People thought the trailer was uninteresting. And now you're like, yeah, you guys are not rooting for the health of the games industry. You're not helping a rising tide lift all ships. Like, that's respectfully, it's not my problem to like deceive myself. If I thought the game didn't look interesting, the game didn't look interesting. It just is what it is. It's it's not this big of a deal, dude. Like, it's just not that interesting of a game based on the trailer. Now another trailer could convince me it actually is really good, and then I'll root for it. But I'm not going to pretend like it looked amazing to try and like hype it up or hype up the industry or save other boats or something. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's short. Well, okay, maybe not. But he says, of course, it isn't just the gameplay fueling this fire, but the relative lack of noise from developer Wildlight Entertainment following its reveal. More than a month later, this teaser remains the only video on the game's official YouTube channel, which at the time of writing still only has 1,610 subscribers. Somewhat odd for a game that has received such a prized reveal spot or slot on gaming's biggest night of the year, a slot that notably the studio did not pay for. Reportedly, Jeff Keighley simply really liked the project a lot more than the wider audience seems to have. Yeah, he seemed to like it a lot more. A similar situation can be seen on social media where the Highguard's official X account is followed by just over 7,000 people and hasn't posted since that December 12th announcement date. And there are no details on characters, abilities, or maps. There's not even an explanation of how this new breed of PvP works, which is unhelpful considering raid shooter is not a commonly recognized genre. Highguard itself may well not be bad, but the marketing promoting it certainly could be accused of being subpar. It's certainly novel. We looked at that one post from one of the guys that's former IGN where he was saying, just connect the dots, dude. It's from former Respawn guys. So they shadow dropped Apex Legends. That's what they're going to do here. It's not a shadow drop if you already announced it. It's just a drop. So what do you mean? Like, shadow drop, never been announced before. They drop it. Former Apex devs, they put it out there. Let's see what happens. That would be one thing. That's not what they do. That's not what they're doing. They announced it. They put out a trailer. People are aware of it. Then they go silent. People are like, what's the deal? Like, it's just a drop. It's just a drop that they refuse to elaborate on. And right now, like, we are 5 days away. It's been rumored that there was an event in Los Angeles for select content creators to go and see the game. I was not one of them. Shocking, I know. I was not one of them. I don't know who went there. And typically I know most of the people that are going to events like this, and I've not heard any rumblings or anything. There was an event, I think Destin wrote this one. Yeah, this was when Destin was still at IGN. So for this event, for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, they went out to Warner Brothers, but it was largely an isolated thing. So they had like IGN and GameSpot and other outlets there. Dude, I forgot about this. Dude, I forgot how many things they do in Suicide Squad that like would so not be okay if they just flipped the characters around. Like, imagine Deadshot or Joker or something doing this to Harley's butt.
No! Harley, no! Worth it.
But it's funny. Like, it's crazy. Dude, that whole game is insane. Anyway, with this one though, they did have a preview event where they invited people out. A lot of people were not convinced of this game at that point, and they invited people out. And in this case, it was a preview event where people literally left being like, yeah, we're not that impressed. Destin was a trooper for this one too, because they, like, some of the fanboys came at him. Like they really went crazy. Yeah. Maybe this could be a case of when not to delay a game. Rock said he probably should have just released Suicide Squad last year in May of 23 like they were supposed to. Live service game, I'm out. Yeah, these comments are all relatively good, but there were some people that were going at him at the time, I remember, because he dared to say that it looked bad. But yeah, I remember this getting headlines. We played it and didn't like it, which is like not great for a preview. But there's allegedly been a preview for Highguard that nobody knows about. Nobody knows who went to it. So I'm guessing it's mainly like big outlets like IGN and GameSpot, those places, Eurogamer. It doesn't seem like they invited a lot of big personalities out there, but maybe time will tell. Maybe they'll reveal that they had Tim the Tap Man out or Shroud again, you know, as if that really helped Suicide Squad. So who knows what they're going to do, but we probably hear about that in the next few days, I would guess, because the game is supposed to launch on Monday, I think. So imagine if it was MrBeast. Dude, I heard from somebody that was in the mix with King of Meat for the marketing stuff, and I heard some of the background of how that MrBeast video happened. And apparently it was literally one executive within Amazon that vetoed the entire process. They had a plan to like go do guerrilla marketing with like actual gamers and like actually try and build out a grassroots marketing campaign. And an executive at Amazon was like, nope, we're going to go with MrBeast. And he overhauled it, vetoed it. So there was a plan to do a more reasonable marketing campaign for that game. But it was one executive dude that decided, nope, we're going MrBeast. Because he's probably like, I've heard of MrBeast. Let's do that. And it ended up being such a catastrophic mistake. 7 million views. Who knows how many millions of views or millions of dollars spent on it. And they got 50 concurrent players. 50 more concurrent players. Yeah. It's almost like if you want your game to sell, you should market it to actual gamers instead of 7-year-olds who play Roblox. Cancel me. I don't care. Cancel me. Just my opinion. Perhaps the development team is aiming to recapture lightning in a bottle and recreate the overwhelming successful shadow drop that Apex Legends benefited from. Perhaps when it arrives, we'll all be hooked. After all, it's directed by Chad Grenier. Grenier, maybe? One of the original Call of Duty designers, whose credits include the first 2 Modern Warfare games, both Titanfall's, Apex Legends, and he's joined by multiple other veterans of hugely successful games. But prior success is not a guaranteed key to victory. And yes, perhaps the final product will end up being underwhelming. But even knowing that, it's disheartening to see that this failure has already been presumed by many online, a predetermined fate, if you will. Again, what are they supposed to do with it, man? Like, they saw it, and like, this is one thing you gotta understand about live service games, okay? The one thing that's worse than a game that looks bad is a game that's cringe, is a game that's taboo. That's what people hate, especially when you're younger. Nobody wants to be playing the uncool game. Nobody wants to be playing the uncool game. So if you are trying to push your friends to play the uncool game, that doesn't work. So everybody just sticks with what they know, what they're familiar with. And with something like this, like you're talking about a live service game and a time commitment to get into it, to get good with it, to get familiarized with it, to build up. I don't know if there's going to be skills or if there's long-term progression or a ranked mode. Like, we literally know nothing because they've refused to tell us. But why would I commit the time and energy to building that out if I think that the game is probably going to be dead in a month? You know, I'm not going to commit to that because it's just going to end up wasting my time. So I'm not going to bother even trying. You know, and that's what happens with a lot of these live service games. It's why player count does matter, because when people commit to a live service game, they're committing. Once they decide this is going to be my thing, they're committing for months or even years. And so you've got to have player base to back that up. Jason Clark, thank you for the 5. They keep using shadow drop. I do not think that means what you think it means. I mean, dude, this drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. It's literally not a shadow drop because there's no shadow. It's a fully lit drop. There's a spotlight on the 26th of January because they announced it was dropping on that day. Why do they keep saying shadow drop? I get it, dude. I don't know. It's this immediate and complete writing off of a game that irks me somewhat. That's the most British sentence I've ever read. You may feel that Highguard's action doesn't look like your cup of tea from the less than 2 minutes you've seen of it. And for all I know, when it launches on January 26th, it may well struggle to find a substantial audience. But it's this immediate and complete writing off a game that irks me somewhat. Again, the trailer was lame and people didn't think it looked great. You're not entitled to a player's time. You're not entitled to a player's energy, to their SSD space. You're not entitled to a single watt of energy from their wall. You have to convince them to download your game. You have to convince them to play it. That's on, and I say you, I mean the developers and publishers, mainly the publisher, because it's a publisher marketing thing. That's on you. Like, I don't understand. We saw this with Highguard. We've seen it with like Concord. We saw it with Suicide Squad. That was cringe though, because that game was $70 and we had people telling us we were brokies if we didn't like it. Do you guys remember that guy? He was like, yeah, if you're not gonna buy Suicide Squad, just admit you're broke. It's like, do you want to play this game? I was like, I'm happy to play this game. If you want to go dollar for dollar, if you want to go band to band, or whatever people say nowadays, I can do that. That's not the problem. The problem is the game sucks. Okay. Like, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll see where that's at. Continuing, I realize I'm largely swimming against the tide of minds that have been made up here. I don't think it's made up. It's just literally, we have information. We came to this conclusion based on that information. There's been no new information. What are we supposed to do? Change our minds based on a post on Reddit or X or IGN telling us you should be more considerate and more open-minded? Like, what are we doing? It's much easier to tear something down than reinforce it with optimism. I think maybe this is the thing. Some people, and I appreciate optimism generally, okay? But I think I think overwhelming optimism and positivity is also how you get games greenlit that waste tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars when they were never going to find an audience to begin with. You know, I could have told you a game like Concord was going to end badly 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before it happened. I think any one of you guys could have, but it was that optimism of, well, we just gotta, we're gonna put it out there and it's here. It's that's how you end up with this situation, is just by refusing to be kind of honest with yourself, even if that honesty is kind of rough to hear, you know? But I can't help but feel that many of the same people gleefully rubbing their hands together at what looks like another underwhelming game in their eyes will be the same bemoaning the fact that the games industry is in a difficult spot where layoffs and studio closures seemingly happen on a weekly basis, putting the creatives they admire out of work. This, though, is crucial, okay? I think this is a chicken and the egg situation. Here's the thing. It is true the current industry lays people off, studios get shut down when a live service game flops. The live service game largely flops because it never stood a chance, or the concept was bad, or it came out 8 years too late for the genre it was trying to appeal to, right? That disaster could have been avoided if they didn't act like it was gonna magically be successful, ignoring the writing on the wall, spending all this time and money making something that never really stood a chance. Because maybe this is a hot take, there are some game concepts that I just think, no matter what the marketing is or whatever, I don't think will pop off. I don't see a world in which Concord, launching when it did, would have found like 50,000 concurrent players. I don't think that was a marketing stumble. I don't think that was a like, oh, if we'd only announced it here and then done this preview and done that, maybe done this different trailer. I don't think there was a world in which that happened, because I think the game, as a product, was doomed to fail from the start. It just didn't make sense. It wasn't appropriate for the time. You know, it was literally 8 years too late. Exactly. With this, like, I feel for the devs that lose their jobs, and I feel for the devs that suffer when the executives are the ones that screwed up and greenlit this when it never should have been. But it's also, maybe it's mean to say, it's literally not the consumer's problem if somebody spends years making a product they don't want. It's just not. Okay? It's not. It's the same thing. Like, if you go to a farmer's market, we've all done it. You go to a farmer's market, you see the stand where there's like somebody selling their homemade whatever granola bar treat, whatever, and you can smell it from across the parking lot because it's just wheatgrass, honey, and maybe a little bit of urine or something. And they're like, no, I swear it's organic. It's a bad product. I don't want it. And even though, yeah, they worked hard on it, and maybe it hurts their feelings to not sell any of those, it's not my problem. Like, you're trying to convince me to buy your thing. You know, this isn't a preschool where I'm going up to the toddlers and being like, wow, this mud pie looks great. Great job. You're an adult. This is a business. You know, it sucks. It can make you sad. I get it. But especially when the market is bad, when people are struggling to pay their bills, you're not entitled to their money and you're not entitled to their time. And that's the thing. Like, time is valuable, baby. Time is money, baby. This general attitude we've seen from a lot of different people where it's like, just assume that the developer is entitled to your time, that you should try it or you're not an actual like ally of gaming. I just find it stupid. I just find it dumb. And it's that kind of take it for granted attitude that is why you end up with so many of these live service games that fall flat, because they're built around this idea that, well, when they try it, they'll like it, probably. And then nobody tries it because they're not convinced that it's worth trying. You know, it's blaming the gamers. Yeah, that's definitely what it seems to come off as. It's like we're missing the key context here, which is that even though Highguard is a free-to-play game, it is still a product from a business. They're trying to sell you stuff. There's going to be an in-game store. There's going to be seasons. There's going to be skins. There's going to be season pass, battle pass, whatever. There's going to be not just that, but also your time. They need you to stop playing that other game that you've been having fun with your friends on and instead play this game. Like, it is still a business. They're trying to extract revenue from you. It's not just like, give it a shot. See what you think of it. Like let's not miss and lose sight of the dynamic here, okay? You are the customer. They need to convince you to come into their business to engage with them. If no one is attempting to make a new experiences and at least try to deliver on the promise of new breed of shooter, then we're in a grim place indeed. Okay, I agree. New experiences, new ideas are great. Totally agree. You still got to convince me that it's worth my time and energy. Like, again, you're not entitled to it. If you're trying to do a new breed of shooter, bear in mind that's a very similar marketing ploy than as what they had with Concord, where it was an innovative narrative technique, which was just a cutscene before every week that they did. Looking further ahead, Marathon will finally launch in March of 26. My another hot take, I think Marathon's actually going to do pretty well. I'm getting more and more convinced of that when I look at player feedback, when I look at the response online, and just if you look at the gameplay overhauls they've done, I think Marathon actually now, I'm up in it. September, I think if it launched in September, it was like a 1% chance, 0 to 1% chance it finds any success at all. I think it would have been a disaster if they tried to push it out in September. Now that it's gone to March, initially I was like, maybe it's now like 5 to 10%. I think now the odds are getting closer to like 30 to 40% that it actually finds a pretty solid audience. An audience that justifies $4 billion purchase price? Probably not. But I do think it'll find a solid audience. I think it actually looks pretty good. But you know why I think that? You know why I think that? Just like Fanbat says in chat, I wasn't before, but I'm interested in Marathon now, he says in chat. Wasn't before, I'm interested in Marathon now. Because they showed you more and convinced you. Imagine that. You weren't convinced based on what they showed you earlier in 2025. They went away, worked on some stuff, showed you new stuff. Now you're convinced. It's amazing how that works. It's amazing. It's been a rocky road for developer Bungie so far, with the last year being full of beta tests that were met with little enthusiasm, plagiarism allegations, not helping the studio's reputation at all. But to its credit, Bungie has been very quiet these last few months, working hard on a new version of the game that takes into account much of the feedback received from its burgeoning community. I, for one, am excited for it, despite not being overly interested in the extraction shooter genre. While many may already see, or indeed want to see, the writing on the wall for amid hasty comparisons to Sony's previous live service shooter Concord, I remain hopeful, largely due to believing in the shooter pedigree the Destiny developer is bringing to the project, much like the ex-Titanfall and Apex Legends team is carrying forward to Highguard. I mean, maybe he honestly is convinced largely because of the pedigree of the developers and their experience. I think most people who have changed their mind and are looking forward to Marathon now, it's based on what they actually saw and have seen. The gameplay reveals, the new information about the new classes, the scab basically mechanic that they've added to the game. Like, they've done a lot of stuff to it to overhaul it. And I think that has spoken volumes. Yeah, they're developers at Bungie, and Bungie's got a storied history, sure. But I think a lot of it is just what you show. Like, talk is cheap, you know? He continues on. Again, I'm by no means convinced that either of these games will be blockbuster hits, nor guarantee that they'll be amazing shooters in their own right, but I at least want to give them a chance. Because if we're not getting excited about games, what are we even doing here? Quote, never judge a book by its cover is an old adage, or is an age-old phrase, but one that seems as pertinent as ever. Maybe in 2026, it should be updated to never judge a game by its initial teaser or lack of marketing beats running up to launch. A mouthful, sure, but we'll never discover the next great game if we endeavor to kill it before it even arrives. I think that, just to wrap this up, I understand what he's saying. And I do think there are people that just love to hate. They just love the rage. Let's be honest. Some of you are even in here. I see you. But I think most people just didn't think the reveal was that interesting, or they even thought it was bad and the game looked bad. And so they decided, looks bad. And until there is sufficient evidence or anything else to convince them otherwise, they're going to stay in that position. They're going to stay in that spot. Now, this could change very quickly. Maybe this preview event comes out in like a few days, if they actually did do a reveal in, like, say the 25th. They do a reveal of the LA preview event thing that they did, and they show people off, and it's like, oh, actually, this is baller. Oh, this game is amazing. I still don't think that's, I don't think that's a slam dunk, because let me just show you a little something. There was a live service game that launched about 9 years ago that received unbelievable hype, unbelievable positive reception. And because it ultimately lands on the, like, luck of the draw, it didn't end up doing too hot. We're also going to see Baby Destin. Do you guys remember this game?
Creators of Left 4 Dead have officially revealed the first information on their new project.
Evolve is no joke. This is a gamer's game. New wave of the next generation.
The game is just so much fun. I love it.
This game is right up my alley. This is a game that I really see myself becoming my next addiction.
Congratulations to Evolve for winning 4 E3 2014 Video Game Critics Awards.
It's a gorgeous game, and I think it's going to do really, really well. I'm all about multiplayer games these days.
Best of Show, Best Console Game, Best Online Multiplayer, and Best Action Game.
Fun as hell.
Make you think about...
This, of course, is from the Krabby Cat video, which is a classic covering this game. But this was a game that was massively hyped up. It was a huge deal at the time, and the reception was overwhelmingly positive. It still ended up flopping catastrophically. It was rough. It was really bad. It's to be clear, I'm not sure if it actually flopped or if it was just because, like, I think it sold decently well at the start, but it died out pretty hardcore.
Very competitive in a very competitive tournament.
If you thought the matchmaking was bad when it first came out, now with an all-time low number of players, good luck on getting into a full lobby or getting your choice of characters now.
There'll be a decent player base at launch, and then seemingly overnight, that player base becomes a shell of itself. And I'm not talking about, like, the hype died down and the player base is stabilized. I mean, fucking sharp decline, craziness.
Hopefully 3 years from now, right? When you've bought some game and it let you down, you know, it didn't live up to your expectations, you can always be like, you know what, I'm gonna play Evolve, because goddamn, that game's still fun.
It is funny to think that their timelines back in 2014 was 3 years from now you'll be playing it. Nowadays, the goal is 10. It's crazy. Different world. All of this, I think, is very, very interesting. It's an interesting discussion to be had over Highguard, but I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to this. The initial reveal was not compelling. People communicated that and have formed an opinion based on that information. Found it uncompelling. Until there is new evidence to change their minds, that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to sit. And that's okay. It's not their problem that they're not convinced, okay? If they looked at the trailer, found the trailer lame, that's the trailer's fault, or that's the marketing agent's fault. And part of it is probably Jeff's fault for putting it in the spot that he did, but it's not the viewer's fault for coming to the conclusion that seemingly the vast majority of people all kind of landed on together. You know? I think it's okay for people to feel that way. It's a healthy level of consumer skepticism. Yeah, and it's what's going to be borne out in the next several years. This is the new normal. Okay? Like, people don't have a lot of cash to throw around. They don't have a lot of time to throw around. They have to be selective with what games they play and buy, where they spend money, where they spend time. And so they're going to be cautious before they make any big moves. And as I've said before, with how big some of these live service games are now, when you want to compete with them, you're not just trying to make a good game. You're trying to make a game that's so good, you get players to leave the game they're currently playing, which is a different thing entirely. You know, because you're not like, if you didn't play a live service game in 2014 and then like Evolve looked awesome, you hop in there, you're a new player to live service. They just acquired you as a new player, right? Nowadays, everybody's kind of got the game that they play with friends. If they are a live service player, they've got their game. So to make Highguard successful, you have to be so good that you convince them to leave that game and come over here. And their strategy right now seems to be to shadow drop. I think it's more like a spotlight drop, but they expect it to drop and let hype carry the day, just like it did with Apex. That works if there's hype. The point of all of this is that there is no hype. That's the problem. So I think that people will jump in. I think people will try it on the 26th when it drops. I think they'll download it, give it a shot for a few sessions. I think the real telling thing is going to be where player counts are a week after launch. Being free to play, I think you'll get higher player counts than Concord had, would be my guess, because Concord had a big price tag and barrier to entry. But I do think that it's going to be how many of those players stick around day 2, day 3, day 4. What does that look like? I just think at the end of the day, if people are not convinced of something, going radio silent is not a great strategy unless you're going to come back swinging. That's the one exception. Like, No Man's Sky drops, catastrophic failure. People are hating on them. They disappear for a while. They come back and they start updating and overhauling the game to make it better and better and better. That helps, I think. That can improve things. But you got to be able to do that. You gotta come back with something big to show, you know? Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Doesn't work. Joke's the guy that said spin off to a totally different game. I mean, that would be funny if they just totally pivot. He took my thing.